All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Well, it is the Mark Thompson Show, and I've got Tony with me, and I've got guests lined up. I've got Mark Thompson waiting in the wings. We're having a little bit of audio trouble, but we're going to try to get him on as well. And of course, it is the big day. We have transitioned into the 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, taking the oath of office next to... That's Melania Trump, right? Because you really can't see her eyes. She looks kind of like a cartoon character almost. She's got this black coat on and this hat that comes down over her eyes. And she looks like a cartoon character to me. But there they all are, the Trump family. There was Elon Musk in the background. It has happened. It's a cold day in hell. Sorry, it's a cold day in Washington, D.C. And here we are. So... it has happened. Donald Trump has given a speech, and President Biden on the way out signed a bunch of preemptive pardons. We'll talk about all of it here on the Mark Thompson Show. Thank you for being here on this Monday. It is a huge day in presidential history for many reasons. So I have invited John Rothmann to be on the show as well. And there he is in the I feel like the Brady Bunch. There's John Rothmann in the corner. And so we'll talk about it all. Welcome John Rothmann to the show. And thank you, Tony, and everybody else. Before we get started, I do want to thank Jim Slayton, who throws in $5. He says, today, I'm going to walk the dogs like never before. I'm going to stay true to that form like never before. Well, yeah, this is a day like, I guess you could say once before. Once in presidential history, we had a president come back after not serving consecutive terms. Right, John Rothmann?
Grover Cleveland, 22nd and 24th President of the United States.
Yeah, and here we go again. So what were your thoughts about what happened this morning, the inauguration, this parts of the speech that you heard?
It was not a conventional speech. I have a book on The President Speaks put together by my old friend Davis Newton Lott. I've read all of the inaugural addresses, and in fact, where I have audio, I've been able to play them and listen to them. This was a completely different kind of speech. Donald Trump made a campaign speech into an inaugural address, and he made clear on the promises he's going to keep. And let me assure you, after the inauguration, he spoke again and reiterated and elaborated on even more promises. So for Donald Trump and his supporters, this was a day of vindication, a day of validation, and they are determined to move ahead. Even as I speak, Donald Trump is signing executive orders. I'm told over 100 different executive orders, including one that would pardon all of those who were involved in January 6th. Now, whether it's all or some, I haven't read the details yet. We know that he's determined to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. He articulated that. By the way, it was interesting. If you watched Hillary Clinton, she was shaking her head and laughing at the very thought.
I mean, it's
understand that Donald Trump believes that these are things he can do and he will do. I do want to note that Joe Biden this morning, before leaving office, pardoned Dr. Fauci, pardoned General Milley, pardoned the January 6th committee. And the reason he did that was a preemptive strike. Let's draw a difference between the word persecution and prosecution. It was Joe Biden's view that these individuals would be persecuted. It was Donald Trump's view that they should be prosecuted. And of course, what Joe Biden did was exactly consistent with what he said he would do, and he has the power to do it. He also pardoned members of his family, and I haven't seen the details on that yet, but I understand he believes that when President Trump referred to his family as the crime family, he was going to do everything he could to protect them. One of the things...
Wouldn't you take the threat seriously? I mean, if it were you, I would.
That's the reason why he did what he did. Yeah. I must say that this will be hotly debated in the days ahead and in this day as to whether it was the right thing to do. But the interesting thing about Joe Biden is he sat with Kamala Harris on the inaugural platform while Donald Trump essentially ripped him up and down. And he did it with good grace. I noticed when people clap and when they didn't clap. That's also an interesting dynamic. By the way, I was glad it was indoors. It's very cold in Washington. I spoke with friends there this morning. It's bitterly cold. But more than that, Donald Trump was correct when he said that you could hear every word. That is to say, the sound system worked, everything was fine. And he really articulated. In fact, he made the suggestion, maybe we should do this every 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
The sound system worked until Carrie Underwood had to sing, and then the sound system didn't work anymore, John. That's the only reason I tuned in for the inauguration, was to hear Carrie Underwood.
And
of course, you would ignore that.
Wow. Now, why are you're really loud? Why are you
let
yelling?
me tell you, Mark, I didn't want to get carried away.
I get it, carried.
Yeah.
I don't know if this audio works, and I'm sorry if
Yes.
this is too hot.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great.
I'm
proud of you.
It's been a crazy morning trying to get this remote location to work, but thanks everybody who's here. But John actually detailed a lot of the things to which I was going to refer, so I won't. It's so delightful to hear John talk about inaugurations because he does bring a historical perspective. Kim, thank you for riding herd over everything. And so I will just quickly jump in. I wanted to spend more time, but as I say, the technical limitations may prevent. The idea, as John had pointed out, that there was any kind of inaugural speech here looking toward the future, on the one hand, I suppose he looks to the future, but on the other hand, he essentially torches Joe Biden for and torches the last administration that he's replacing for the bulk of his speech. I mean, he tells the story of America that is completely, on some level, disconnected from the actual America, right? Of course, this makes it easier in a month to say, look, I fixed everything. Because the reality was not all these things to which he's referred were actually broken. I think he did win, John, wouldn't you concede, on the border? And he made a big deal out of the border. He did it in kind of campaign speech terms, talking about those who were coming across, talking about the gangs, talking, et cetera. But then he descends into the absurdity of renaming the Gulf of Mexico, Panama. This is nutty sort of dictator ridiculousness. Like, now that I'm president, we're going to wear underwear on the outside. I mean, it was literally that kind of absurdity when you talk about renaming the Gulf. You can rename all you want, man. That doesn't help the people who you say you care about, the average American. So my only hope, John, is that he is so busy renaming things that maybe he'll never do all the bad stuff that we know he's capable of doing.
He has 100+ executive orders. I have not had a chance, nor has anyone had a chance to review those orders until they're formally issued. But there is no doubt that Donald Trump intends in the next day to fulfill as many promises as he can. One of the most interesting things, he is going to sign an executive order on the 14th Amendment on birthright citizenship, which I don't care how many executive orders he signs, doesn't make any difference until the Constitution is amended. And he doesn't have the votes to do that. So we are caught in a very interesting situation. Oh, I see on the screen, for those of you watching, declaring a national emergency on the border.
Well, that's what he said he was going to do. I mean, we know he said that in his speech. I'm going to declare a national emergency.
And he's going to sign the executive order, I'm sure, as we speak.
And so I think things related to immigration and the border, he is going to do aggressively. Look, there's a built-in absurdity to this, we know. I mean, it's weird when we start talking about policy and immigration, and I think we then slide into sort of the nuts and bolts of what actually can get done, and we're going to do a lot of that in the days ahead. But in the inaugural moments, you saw it all crash together. The absurdity, the nuttiness, the notion that this guy who tried to overthrow an election would now be inaugurated as the next president. This is
in the same room where the insurrection took place.
Thank you. And those who know he tried to overthrow the election, those who know that he exhorted his followers to take over the Capitol, they're having run for their lives in the same room with this guy who actually created it. I mean,
and many stood and applauded. And I was pointing out, Mark, after the inauguration, he spoke to supporters and he made clear that the 2020 election was a rigged election. He said it not once, but twice. So he is not retreating from those stands which he has taken, and frankly, that his supporters applaud.
Right. I think it's a bit of red meat that he throws to the supporters, since he knows that's a winner. I thought the COVID, mentioning COVID and pardoning and then rehiring all those who would be who were let go during the COVID crisis with back pay. I'm going to have to look at the legalities of that. I don't know if he can do it or not. But again, it was another thing to say to reemphasize, look, I'm your man. I wouldn't have agreed to any of this stuff. Freedom has returned to Washington. There's a lot of wrapping themselves in the stuff of the inauguration, John. The brass bands and no one likes a brass band like I do. But the stuff of the inauguration, the grandeur of all of this, and you've been around Washington. I grew up in Washington. It is. It's awesome, literally, like when you see the history of these institutions come together. But then when this guy comes forward in the middle of all of this, so as they wrap themselves in God, I mean, God, the faith. You have Franklin Graham giving the invocation. It's just one spiritual leader after another. Now, that stuff doesn't land with me, but whether or not it lands with me, I respect people's ability to include it. But more to the point, it helps insulate Trump from the absurdity, the danger, the real specter of destruction that I think he represents. Because wrap yourself in God enough, wrap yourself in faith and those of faith and patriots and the flag, and under the cover of all of those things, I think you can do so much damage to this country, and that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I will reflect with you on that. I agree. But this is Donald Trump, and we can analyze all of this. But what is going to matter are those executive orders today, how he wants to implement them, the direction he's moving in. And 3 cheers for Joe Biden for pardoning Dr. Fauci, for pardoning General Milley, for pardoning the January 6th participants in the panel, in the congressional panel. And the reason is because there is a difference between prosecution and persecution. And what they were afraid of was being persecuted. And that's why Donald Trump is where he is in terms of his rhetoric. And again, I would reiterate, after the inauguration, the inaugural address, speaking to his supporters, he again reaffirmed his principle that the election of 2020 was rigged, that he mentioned Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger by name, blasting them. So it's an interesting consideration. Was it the right thing to do to issue these pardons? You can argue it back and forth, but I'll tell you, he did it to preempt what could have been a real disaster with Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, you can argue it back and forth, but it seems as though the fact that it was, I think, arguably required, given the recriminatory leanings and the stated explicit recrimination that they were likely to begin, I think you kind of had to do it. I mean,
and I pointed out earlier, Mark, he also pardoned members of the Biden family.
Right.
Biden did that because when Donald Trump refers to the Biden crime family, he wanted to make sure his family doesn't suffer.
Sure.
This is really, I have to tell you, I rejoice in the fact that we had an inaugural ceremony, that we had a peaceful transition of power. But when I read this morning some of the inaugural addresses of the past, and I look at what most presidents articulate on Inauguration Day, what Donald Trump did was antithetical to all of that.
This is interesting. I love poodles. I want to talk about that in just a second. But this is the John Rothmann that I thought we'd get more of. And you pleasantly surprised me today when you talk about some of the specifics and some of the legitimate threats to this country that this new incoming administration has. But the Rothmann, and it's both charming, and this is what you get from a historian, is sort of rejoicing and embracing the peaceful transfer of power that was mentioned by Klobuchar and others today. But you realize how that is a fading aspect of American democracy. And I say that because Klobuchar and a few others who talk about the peaceful transfer of power are kind of emphasizing it for a reason, right, John? They're explicitly calling it out in this instance to, I think, suggest this is what we see, how gracious we are. This is the way we all should be. Every incoming administration should be okay with the new administration, no matter how radical we may perceive them, no matter how. But the reality is, these are guys who are going to be dragged kicking and screaming from power. They will not give up power in a peaceful transfer way. Look at what happened the last time. So I'm talking about the last time he had to leave office. So I'm deeply troubled, but yet I understand how we embrace those institutions, because after all, that is what the country's based upon. So I know you love these institutions and like to refer to them, and I have mad respect for you because you know them so well. But I fear that they are fading as a result of the henchmen and Trump himself who are coming in.
Mark, I couldn't help but reflect that the inaugural moving indoors into the rotunda, where 4 years ago, Donald Trump, in my judgment, surely a personal opinion, tried to destroy American democracy, is the ultimate irony. And so we have to proceed from the premise, and I'm going to make a date with you for 4 years from now, when Donald Trump leaves office, as he will, to see whether or not my faith in the American system holds, or whether your doubting Thomas point of view. Did you get the doubting Thomas? Did you?
I got it. I kind of got it. Yes, I did. No, and I think that that's fair. I think that that's fair. Moving forward, there are a couple of other things just to quickly note as I look around that room and I see Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk and
who is running. Did you hear? He's withdrawing from his job now. He's going to run for governor of Ohio.
Governor of Ohio, and it's clear that the unity associated with the original announcement of Doge and this, and it was referred to actually by Trump in his inaugural speech, somehow getting rid of the waste in government. We all understand there's waste in government, but these guys.
Just point out, Doge is not a department of the government.
Right.
But one of the things that Donald Trump wants to do, it was announced today, is make it a department of government, which he can only do with the consent of Congress. Well, if he has the votes, it may happen.
Yeah, it won't happen. So here is Sylvia. Put that back up there if you would, please, Kim. Sylvia is saying, President Joe Biden did the absolute right thing in pardoning those people. My biggest deception is that he did not pardon more. My biggest disappointment might be that he did not pardon more. We are in a time of vengeance with Trump at the helm. I mean, there's certainly a lot to suggest that. And I would say you're right, full stop. Having said that, I will tell you that this, of course, is used from a propaganda standpoint to say, you see, the Biden crime family that we talk about, what does he do on the way out? He pardons his whole family. Why would you pardon your whole family unless they were all in on the crime? So but that's just, they're always going to take something and turn it into propaganda. So you have to ignore that.
May I repeat, persecution versus prosecution. Joe Biden did it not because he's afraid of prosecution, he was afraid of persecution. And by doing this, he frankly did the right thing. But understand the criticism I heard it on CNN this morning. One of the commentators observed, well, it wasn't the right thing to do. He's doing exactly what he thought Trump would. It's a completely different situation. It's apples and oranges.
Yeah, I completely agree. Susan says, I'm truly afraid of the next 4 years with Trump, and for him to be in the same room as the riots a few years back is really sickening. Yeah, I agree. There is a nauseating aspect to the fact that this guy fomented the kind of violence and unrest that we saw at the Capitol, that he undermined the election to the point that there was a fake elector scheme. Okay, this is before the violence at the Capitol. The fact that he engineered that, the fact that he wanted the Justice Department to announce that there were irregularities with the election. It doesn't matter, he said, whether or not there actually were. I just need you to announce it. The fact that he was on to the Secretary of State of Georgia and he wanted to concoct those votes. So for all of those reasons and more, it strikes me as extraordinary that this last go-round with Elon Musk in his pocket would be completely legitimate. But hey, this is where we are. And now it's a question of some of those levers of power that John's talking about, the congressional levers of power. It's a question of those coming to his aid, that is to say, in getting a lot of his legislation through, or a lot of his agenda through, if you want to think of it that way, or if he doesn't quite have the coalition necessary for some of the things he wants to do. One thing he does have the coalition for, John, is what? Tax cuts. You know he'll get those through.
Yeah, I believe so. I want to say a word also. This morning, I gave a talk last week, and I indicated that I thought the one cabinet nominee who might really be in trouble is Tulsi Gabbard, the former Democratic representative from Hawaii, who is a nutcase. And this morning, interestingly enough, there was a report that, in fact, her nomination is in trouble. But let me point out that what Donald Trump is going to have is a cabinet of people he wants, by and large. You will note in his inaugural address, he referred to the health of America. He was talking about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Talk about something that scares the living bejeebers out of me. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, it's a there's a lot in the cabinet that's worrisome. I mean, I think Patel at the FBI is a frightening, chilling.
It's horrible. He has an enemies list. And every time somebody says to me, well, he doesn't have one, he does. I've read his book, for heaven's sake.
Oh, yeah. Patel is right out there. And he's, I look, and he'll be joined by Bondi, who was literally paid off. She was literally paid off, not for a lot of money, $25,000, to drop the Florida component of the Trump University lawsuit, a lawsuit that they settled for $25 million. They had to agree that there was fraud involved in that Trump
Let's
University.
remind everybody, Bondi is the Attorney General designate nominated by Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I just want to remind people, because these are all names that we're going to learn and have more to do with.
Yeah, no, it's very true. So against that backdrop, we see this inaugural event. And by the way, John, I know you're, again, a historian and a student of all of these different inaugurations. I believe that the inauguration should have been moved inside years ago. I never thought it should live outside. Washington in January is a cold place. A really cold place. And you also, and I think you correctly noted this, you get a different sense. Most people are connecting with the inauguration virtually. They're watching it on television. They're listening on the radio, whatever. And the nature of the speeches, I think, are slightly different. And I like the fact that it's indoors. Now, I get that the idea is it's outdoors so that the people can participate in the inauguration. But a lot of that stuff, I think, may be a holdover. Hey, democracy may be a holdover.
No, we've got to fight for democracy. Somebody asked me, how do you proceed then with Donald Trump? You take the word loyal opposition. People are loyal to America, loyal to the Constitution. And the Democrats have got to couch what they do in those terms. Remember, there is no now titular head of the Democratic Party. So getting their act together is going to be an interesting thing to do. Anyway.
Well, in that spirit, I've got Gary Dietrich waiting, but I wanted to I want you to kind of chew on this. Maybe you can give us a hint. But the Democrats may have to reconstitute a bit of what their party is, the way they connect with the electorate, the way they connect with the nation. Now, I think they'll be helped. I just want to say this. I think they'll be helped by what's going to happen here for the next few years, because you have utter incompetence and political terrorists who are now inhabiting government. This is my opinion. So I believe this country is about to be turned on its side. Now, it might take a while. There's some momentum, positive, but the more Trump gets into the dance and rhythm of his administration, which is full of recrimination, and also it's going to be, I think, if he follows through on some of his policies of tariffs, it's going to have a terrible effect on the economy. I think there's going to be a real whipped around moment where the electorate is going to go, whoa, what do we do? Now, I could be wrong about that, but either way, won't the Democrats have to reconstitute a bit?
Yes, and I want to remind you of a term, the arrogance of power. What you heard today was an expression of the arrogance of power. Donald Trump referring to his massive victory, which was not massive, but which was a victory. And when you have a president with that attitude, which I must tell you my old boss Richard Nixon had, it is a disaster for the person and for the country. So, but we're going to watch critically. I'm going to be very interested in seeing how he moves forward, particularly on the Panama Canal, particularly on the 14th Amendment, particularly on renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. I want to see how he treats his vice president, who, frankly, the other night at the rally, what did he do? He called up Elon Musk instead of J.D. Vance, although J.D. Vance was on the program. This is going to be a fascinating moment.
I think sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say, I think that'll be an interesting dynamic to watch, but I have to say, to the average American, they don't give a damn about J.D. Vance or whether he was on the stage or whatever. So
yes,
they're going to, but you're right, in the sense, again, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're right in the sense that there might be a dissolving of any kind of a unity. The flank may begin to melt away, is kind of your point when it comes to the administration.
Yeah, and let me also point out that Donald Trump is 84 years old, 78 years old rather, 78 years old, and when you have a 78-year-old president, you have to look seriously at the vice president, because the odds are that J.D. Vance will become president. I talked to my agent in New York the other day, and I pointed out there is no comprehensive biography of J.D. Vance. These are things we have to think about. And as for the cabinet, I know that you and I will talk about the hearings and so forth at another time, but everybody should be aware that this is a real test for the Republicans, because the Republicans are buying in to what Donald Trump is selling. And if, in fact, Donald Trump falls, so will the Republican Party with a giant thud.
Well, they're buying in for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of self-dealing going on. By the way, I spoke to my agent in New York the other day, is a statement that has never been uttered on the show. And for that, I applaud you, sir. Thank you, John. We'll see you later.
It's always a pleasure, and good luck, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. John Rothmann, everybody. Are you able to hear me okay, or what's
it's a little loud, so you don't need to speak so loudly, but you sound okay. Yeah, we can hear you.
Tony, can you do something about that? Because I just speak,
No, your volume is fine. It's just you sound like you're in a room and you sound like you're doing this to the microphone.
Well, then maybe I may jump out then.
No,
the quality's good.
You're fine.
Quality's fine.
No, I don't know. What's happened here is
quality fine. We'll see what they say.
If you're just joining us, I'm joining remotely. I brought this whole rig along. I've got a microphone, which is worthless. I've got a whole mixing board, which is worthless. I've spent all this money to try to get it so that we can join. And I brought in two people. You're screaming, says Teacher Lori. Teacher Lori has very seldom something positive to say about me. So
you don't sound like you're screaming now. You sound fine.
Yeah. Well, I am screaming. I do scream. I'm emotional. There's emotional dynamic to my presentation. So if that's no good, then maybe we shouldn't do it anymore. That's all I'm saying.
Isn't today the day to scream anyway? I mean, come on.
Yeah. I think between Dietrich and myself, we're going to have like this reverberative kind of fun cut through. What does it?
So we have Gary waiting in the wings, but I wanted to tell you something. You guys were talking about how you and John Rothman were just mentioning the Republican support for Trump, right? How they're buying into everything. And one of the things that Trump said in his rally the other night was that he has this overwhelming support from young people, which isn't necessarily true, because I think a lot of young people voted for Kamala Harris as well. But my daughter told me something, my 15-year-old daughter. She was at a friend's house and the friend was trying to back up all of her old TikTok videos and kept getting this message saying, TikTok is over. You can't do this anymore. It's over. And she said all the people she knows are posting messages to Trump to try to get him to save TikTok. And now we know that he's given TikTok a reprieve. And I wonder if that doesn't bring young people to his side who have written to him seeking some type of TikTok reprieve, and now they get one, so they see that when they reach out to the president that it actually works. And I hope that young people see past the TikTok thing.
Well, the TikTok thing is a big deal to a lot of people. And as I mentioned to you, I didn't think TikTok was going away. The Biden administration said they wouldn't enforce it. This is always a weird thing. A new law goes into effect, and all the leadership can't wait to tell you we're not going to enforce it. I don't know how President Trump handles this, but we'll ask Gary Dietrich. Maybe you thought about this, and you're not wrong. I mean, that there are enough users, 170 million people use it. On some level, it will have an effect. I mean, there is and Trump does what he does best, which is he messages and says, I'm the guy who saved TikTok for you.
That's right.
And even in the inaugural ceremony, the CEO of TikTok was there alongside Trump.
Yeah.
And also in the announcement, because I am a TikTok user, in the announcement, I think I sent it to you, Kim. I took a screenshot. It said, thankfully, we're off right now, but a resumption of services soon. Hopefully, President Trump has indicated he's going to, bring us back. Here it is. Thanks for your patience and support. As a result of President Trump's efforts, TikTok is back in the U.S. This is every user was greeted by this. You can continue to create, share, and discover all the things you love on TikTok. Now, the last thing, and this really is the super last thing, and then I'll bring in Gary Dietrich, on TikTok. And I know a lot of people on this who follow us on this show don't use TikTok, but we do. In my house, it's very, very popular, and there's some good stuff on there. They have changed the algorithm, so it is back, but the algorithm is completely different. Meaning, if you were following the Mark Thompson show before, it's not there anymore. In your feed, there are a bunch of right-wing pundits and creators, and it has completely turned upside down TikTok. It is not the same TikTok it was on Friday. Monday's TikTok is different than Friday's TikTok, so that's to be continued. Anyway, so should I continue or should I let you
carry
talk
on.
to Gary? Okay,
No,
because
you're
I feel
good.
the audio. Okay, thanks everybody for being here. Tony, play me a pacer or something. Play me a stinger. Play me something. Do something, Tony. Make use of yourself, please.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. Very well done. This guy is the great political analyst across the iHeart radio network and also the CBS television stations through California and beyond. How about it for Gary Dietrich, everyone? Hey, Gary.
Hey, Mark. And listen, good to be with you on Inauguration Day, my friend. I'm glad you're soldiering on. Listen, don't worry about the broadcast technology. I've been doing this, as you know, over 3 decades. As you know, my generic thing about TV and radio, people, stuff happens, okay? So just let Mark be Mark. This is his show. Who cares if it isn't perfect today? Look, Carrie Underwood didn't get her background music during the freaking presidential inauguration. So things happen, folks. Everybody take a deep breath. The country will soldier on.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that because I was thinking, well, that's one person we know will be losing their job in the new administration, the audio guy. Yeah, but that was a weird, awkward moment, and of course, my friends on the left blew up my phone saying, "See, this is a metaphor for his administration." But the reality is, I, of course, and I mentioned to John Rothmann, I actually like that they moved the inauguration indoors. I mean, I always thought it was excessive that it was done outdoors in January. I mean, just a real big ask, both for public officials, many of whom are, north of 70 years old, and also for the public who's there to see their guy come in or to witness history or for whatever reason. I mean, they're out there for hours in freezing cold. People get frostbite, people get sick, et cetera. So I didn't really have a problem with moving it in. Now we get to the substance. He essentially opened up a blowtorch on Joe Biden and his administration. It was a remarkable thing. He really brought his stump speech into his inaugural speech, didn't he?
Yeah, I think, none of it was a surprise. I think there's certainly going to be critiques, as there already are now, about whether this was the venue to do that. Now, I think there's 2 takeaways that I took from that. One was, yes, pretty aggressive up front, no question about it, but that has characterized this president, and frankly, the outgoing administration hasn't been too kind, as you know, in the last couple of weeks, to the Trump-Vance incoming gang either, right? I'll take people back. There's a funny takeaway way back when reportedly the Bill Clinton folks took the W's off of the keyboards. Do you remember this story, Mark?
Yes, I do.
In the West Wing, because said, well, we're going to stick it to George W. Bush. They literally took the W. The W key was missing from the keyboard. So that's just sort of a funny thing. Look, it's not uncommon for there to be no love lost between the outgoing folks and the incoming folks. That happens. I think the bigger takeaway is the second one for me, and that is, President Trump has set up a very ambitious agenda, and now he's got to deliver on it. I mean, he's now the president. He's going to be measured by these, roughly 10 major things that he laid out in this inaugural address. in the next 100 days, and and beyond. And so, what you put out there on the table, you better be able to chop. And I think that's going to be a very interesting sort of set of milestones that he's going to be measured by here in 2025.
Of course, that is so true, and it's interesting to be reminded of that. I was struck by the fact that Drill Baby Drill got a standing ovation. It's such in my judgment, I'm a little bit, not just a little bit, I'm a tree hugger, okay? So I think Drill Baby Drill is a reckless, ridiculous hack bumper sticker kind of thing to say, but it clearly has and arouses great support. But the specifics of Drill Baby Drill are really starkly different than what we've seen in this past administration, which seemed to at least honor some kind of transfer of energy needs in America to alternative energy, while also honoring the beholden nature of our politics to oil companies, frankly. I mean, there was more oil and natural gas exploitation in the Biden administration than there was in the Trump administration. It's not like, it's not as though they were orphaned in the last administration. So, but it really struck me as an inflection moment, that Drill Baby Drill getting the standing O. Speak to that part of his agenda. I mean, it seems as though that's going to be dictated by a lot of things that are just kind of boilerplate.
Well, I think the reason that resonates, that particular phrase resonates, is twofold. One is it is seen by many people who are absolutely sick and tired of inflation. I have said for many, many, many years in politics, I think I even said on your show here, Mark, a couple months ago, that the worst possible thing for a sitting president are those price billboards on every street corner in every major city in America, right? Because they remind you, geez, gas is, remember when it was up close to $5 a gallon for regular gas? And people are like, wait a minute, what? And you get reminded it literally mile after mile after mile. I think the Drill Baby Drill, honestly, Mark, is raising the flag up the standard of, hey, inflation sucked and we're going to do something about it. I think that's one thing. The other part about it is oil politics have always been.
Oh, we lost Gary. We lost Gary. Lost him. He's coming, but he'll come back. It just seemed like it might have been an internet hiccup.
Yeah, but probably got a call on his phone, I'm guessing, because I think he doesn't.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
so he got a call.
Okay. But it's interesting. Yeah, it was a Sarah Palin motto. That's great, Justin Bean. And I think he was going to say that oil politics have always been a big part of American politics and a big winner. Here comes Gary now. What were you saying, Gary, that oil politics has been what?
Shoot. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sure that was some nefarious individuals doing their best to keep me from conversing with Mark Thompson. I'm sure that's.
So you were saying that, but you're saying the second thing, in addition to being the constant reminder of of gas prices around which the president has almost no control. You were saying, but the second thing about oil exploration and exploitation. Speak to that. Politically.
It's a sort of how do I say it? It's a badge. It's a descriptor for international power and politics. So oil politics, since the days really, you can go back. Let me tell you if I can get this thing. If you go back to the days of Jimmy Carter, right? That's when this all started to be seen as an indicator of a president's power, right? I mean, if we could be held hostage by the gas crisis in the mid-70s, geez, the president has no power and America has no standing. And it's when OPEC became a power broker internationally, not as a nation state, but as oil brokers, right? International oil brokers, that's when it became a descriptor of Americans' relative power in the world. And I think that's the other reason why Drill Baby Drill resonates so much for people, is because America's back. We're taking control of our own energy. Not only, the goal, of course, is to become fully energy dependent. And then as Trump elucidated again today, a power, maybe the most powerful oil exporter in the world, which is a very different position than America found itself in beginning in the 1970s.
That's a great point, and I didn't expect you to make it. I was trying to anticipate because you dropped out for a second on the point you were trying to make, but that's such a good point, that it really started with the country being brought to its knees, essentially, by the oil cartels in the Middle East. And it was a sign of, and it was one of the things that did bring down around the weakness of the Carter administration. Such a good point. But the reality is, I'll just mention this as an aside. When we drill, baby, drill, that doesn't help the price of oil here. It doesn't. You could drill on every street corner. It doesn't help. Where does that oil go? It doesn't stay domestic. So they drill domestically and then they bring it onto the world market. Now, if I were king, okay, I would make them sell that stuff here in this country. So if you want to drill, baby, drill, great. Drill, baby, drill. But guess what, baby? You're going to sell, baby, sell in this country that oil that you pumped out of the ground in my country. You defile the environment and you exploit the land and you exploit the resource. We're going to benefit from it. That's not what happens. They drill, baby, drill, and it goes onto the spot market. So the amount of relief, if you want to think of it this way, the consumer's experience is really pretty small.
Well, there's a larger strategic component to this that people are already talking about, and we're going to see if this plays out in the next year, 2, 3, 4 years. And that is, yes, Mark. I mean, how much of this is going to end up on the domestic market? That is one side of the story. The other side of the story is the goal by pushing a lot of oil, and there's talk about pushing significant quantities, onto the global market for petroleum, is that you force the other players then to reduce their own prices. So that's sort of that's the power play of it. You know, you take a commodity and let's say you increase the volume of it over the next 4 years by 10%. That has got to have a dampening effect on the pricing structure globally. Does that make sense? And that is the goal. That's the goal of getting it out of the ground and getting it on the market, is to really weaken the power of the OPEC cartel, as it used to be called, the OPEC group as they now call it, and also, for example, put pressure on people like Russia, who depend extensively on their petroleum and natural gas exports for their national income.
This is to be continued, but I'd suggest that's obviously, I say obviously, I mean, once you know the 3D chess of it, that's the obvious play. But as I say, it'll be to be continued, because my plan, which is that you force them, if they exploit domestic resources, to sell domestically, that would also have an effect in that 3D chess game, because all of a sudden, America, big consumer, we're not consuming anymore from some of this country. But now moving on. So the inauguration did have, you must concede, Gary, this odd, disconnect. The disconnect was this august institution, the speeches from Amy Klobuchar, the speeches from those of faith, the invocation, so you've got God, and all the different gods represented, or a bunch of them anyway, different religions, America's traditions, the transfer of power being a peaceful one, alongside Donald Trump, who half the room certainly, and I would suggest even more than half the room, tried to undercut an election, the fake elector scheme, and every manner, obviously the violent uprising being the culmination, but every manner of attempt to hang on to power the last time. So it was a weird, and then of course his tone wasn't rancorous, but his words were certainly incendiary when he talked about Biden and he talked about the last administration. I mean, it was a tough room to sit in if you're Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and many of the Democrats who were there, right?
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. I don't think they were surprised by anything that was said. I mean, if we want to try to put a positive spin on this thing, let's just acknowledge the fact that, thank God, literally, in my view as a person of faith, they were all sitting in the same room. What struck me, Mark, is, and I thought about that this week leading up to today's ceremony. Over the weekend, I'm thinking, man, this is the very rotunda where 4 years ago we saw the break-in videos. We saw the break-in pictures, right? I mean, it is remarkable. And I guess if I want to put a positive spin on it, you're absolutely right. Was it too partisan? Many, many people are going to say, yes, it was. Mark, I'm going to tell you something. I was simply thankful that we are, call it back to normal, okay? But we had a transfer of power with all the trappings, with the Vances and the Trumps walking out to Marine One, to see the Bidens off. I mean, I was just grateful for that, because I truly hope that every American says, this is the way it should be done, okay? This is how it's done, and I was grateful for that. I'm just glad and hope that we never see what we saw 4 years ago. I don't care who's in power, and I don't care who their opponent is.
Fair enough. And I think, excuse me, those things can be encouraging. I'll grant you that. And those images are important. And, I don't want to be so cynical to suggest that, none of this stuff matters. And I mean, I was saying before we began this conversation that, the bands, the big brass bands, the patriotic music. I mean, they are moving, and if you're around them, I grew up in D.C., so I was, at a lot of these things, and it's hard not to be moved. Meaning, it's hard not to be impressed. I mean, the way it lands with all of us is going to be different, but it is a rich history, even though we're a young country, and that history is played out and underscored in a couple of moments, and to which I think you appropriately refer. So moving forward, I guess it's been a busy day already. He's uncorked something north of 100, maybe shy of 200 executive orders. And I don't know, by executive order, he can't rename the Gulf of Mexico, though, Gary, can he? And he can't take Greenland, I don't think. But these are two things that he's articulated he wants to do.
Well, he could ask that all federal references to the Gulf of Mexico be the Gulf of America, and he may well do that. I mean, I just see that as a Trump thing. I mean, does it change anything, including people out on their boats or fishing boats or oil rigs or anything in the Gulf of Mexico? No, it doesn't change a thing. It's symbolic. We'll see where that goes. I want to bring this home if I can to California, Mark, because word out today that he's going to be coming to the fire zone on Friday. We'll see if that happens. And importantly, if anything substantive comes out of that, right? I'm sure the governor's going to be there with him. You have to believe that. And I think if we want to start turning the page, if you can say that, we want to see, particularly here, Mark, you're right in the thick of it, I know. We were texting over the weekend. God bless you and Courtney. I mean, you guys are right in the thick of this thing. We want to see, and to me, this is going to be an early test, Mark. It really is, of how Washington and Sacramento are going to get along and work together for the common good of people. I want to see that. I think most people do. And I think if there's a presidential visit on Friday, I want to see some movement with Gavin and with Trump and getting things moving in a joint way together on behalf of people. I know you would agree with that.
Oh, yeah. And the economics that California faces as a result of these fires. And we have another pretty major event later this afternoon into tomorrow. I mean, we're extraordinarily nervous about this week, about the weeks to come. But the damage already done, I mean, even if the music stopped right now, is substantial. It's significant. So you're right. We need buy-in on both sides. But the buy-in from California, it would seem, just to press the point, feels very normal, meaning it's what normally happens after a disaster. It happened in North Carolina. It happens after these hurricanes and tropical weather systems hit Louisiana and Florida, et cetera. The federal government is petitioned for help because that's the only way these states can get through. And California contributes, as you know, an immense amount to the federal government, and we don't get an immense amount back. The rest of these states, Louisiana, Florida, et cetera, they're generally welfare states that we're helping out. And so all of a sudden, to make the government of California, the people of California, jump through some kind of hoops, loyalty hoops, maybe it is in the case of Trump, and administrative hoops in the case of some of these other things that have been suggested. I mean, they want to see the plan, where's the money going to go? I mean, these are sort of unprecedented demands on some level.
Well, FEMA does have very clear guidelines about use of funds. I mean, those are in place. They have always been in place. The question is going to be, are there going to be additional things layered on top of those, Mark? And that's kind of what you're referencing, and is there going to be some kind of additional requirements for, wildland fire zone mitigation, for fuels, et cetera? That's what everybody's waiting to see in the next couple of weeks, where and if the Trump team does anything with that. So, yet to be seen. I do think it's good that Trump is coming out. I think that statement is important, and I do hope that it's a positive visit, not a negative one. I do know, before we leave, I want to make sure we get that little positive thing we wanted to inject into the show today about Drive Savers, that this service is going to be free for fire victims. I hope we can take 60 seconds and let people know about that, so that we can make sure if somebody has been negatively affected. I know these guys are legit. They sent this stuff out, I know, to all media folks, and I just thought it'd be worthy for us to let people know, hey, if you're a victim of this, you can get a hard drive, or they have all kinds of parameters on your phone and your computer, whatever. I guess it's one per household, one per business. They will recover the data of fire victims for free. They say up to $1 million. But I thought it was important we get on today, Mark, because apparently you have to do it this month. They're taking these requests up until the end of January.
So the number is 1-800-440-1904. A lot of people just listen to the podcast, so I want them to have this number, 1-800-440-1904. And that is free data recovery. I think it's great that you brought that to our attention. I wasn't aware of it, frankly, until you brought it to my attention. Tomorrow, I will have information. I don't know if I'll be with you because of all the technical things. I hope to jump in for a second anyway to tell you about, as you know, I'm very active in the animal community, and there are extraordinary services that are being offered in outreach in that world to try to help so many people who've been separated from their animals, even livestock and large animals. So I will get to all of that tomorrow, but you're so right to point to this. It takes a village, and it's going to take a village beyond California, I think, to recover from this. So it's hang on tight. I thought it was interesting too, by the way, that he did mention California, just as we mentioned it here. Trump mentioned California in his inaugural comments, for those who missed it. And so, I mean, he mentioned it in a litany of kind of, it was a laundry list of things that he felt he was going to do as president. It was good that California made that list of agenda items, I thought, Gary.
Yeah, I think so. It's sort of it sort of reminds me, Mark, of when people were dealing with the Detroit and auto industry problems, too big to fail. Remember that in the banking system? I mean, California's too big to ignore. Trump knows this. And let's also remind ourselves, a lot of the guys that have been cozying up to him recently, I don't know, Musk, Zuckerberg, right? All Bezos, all the tech kids, the tech bros as they're calling them now. Where are their companies based? I don't know. California, right? So I really do think that that is going to have an impact as well. A lot of these guys in their workforces are here in the Golden State. And I think there's going to be, frankly, a lot of pressure on the administration to not ignore California, to get on the job. And I'm really interested to see what happens out of this Friday visit.
Let's hope. Let's hope that. But it's so great to hear your take on things, Gary. Always appreciate you being here. You can find Gary across the iHeart Radio network and across all the CBS television stations as well. We'll talk next week, my friend. Thank you, Gary Dietrich.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep. See you. Kim, could you? Could you give the full spot for Bill Campbell? I don't have the notes in front of me, but he is the real estate agent of choice who brings us Gary Dietrich every week.
Gary Dietrich's segment is sponsored by Bill Campbell at Remax Gold. So if you are relocating into or from Northern California, you need a highly respected real estate professional like Bill Campbell of Remax Gold. You can call or text Bill 530-448-7474, 530-448-7474, Bill Campbell at Remax Gold.
Right on. Now, Tony, you give me a little pacer, you see. This is how we do it. And
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you. Now I'm happy. The No Political Solution to a Spiritual Problem says, we're seeing an ultra-patriotism that mixes the identity of a nation with a cult of personality surrounding Donald J. Trump. To MAGA, America is Trump, just as Trump is America. I think that is a fair take in the main. I think that there is now on the right, if you want to call it that, an essential takeover by Trump and his MAGA faithful. And one of the things that has animated that is the fact that Trump has an army of supporters who are literally armed. I mean, there is a serious threat, and we've heard it from public officials. I mean, look at what Mitt Romney said. Now, Mitt Romney's a Republican, but he was just not walking in line enough, in lockstep enough. And he talked about the real physical threat that people feel to themselves and their family from MAGA supporters. So again, I know there are people who float through here who are MAGA, and I'm sure you're not, you're not holstering up every day and ready to take out somebody who's not on the same political page as you are. But there are others who are radicalized, and it's a real thing. So I'm talking about it. It's a real thing as a political cudgel, and it has worked to bring a lot of them in line. So I believe that comment that we shared is right. It's America is MAGA right now.
People got really upset when Gary Dietrich made the comment about that we're back to normal because of, the images of President Biden leaving and President Biden attending the inauguration and all of these normal things that happen. And I think the feeling among some people is there shouldn't be a normal. There should be a fighting back. This is not normal. Resist at every turn. There's a lot of comments about the Third Reich going on in the chat or what have you. And so I feel anger today. I feel a lot of anger.
Well, 2 points. One is, last point first, you'll feel anger here. I mean, we see this incoming administration, I think, in the main, meaning we see it completely, but I'm saying in the main, most people who come through here see it as a legitimate threat to justice, a legitimate threat to a sense of living sustainably, those things, peace and freedom, these things that we value, liberty, fairness, that we purport to be part of in America. They use these words, and we feel, anyway, they pervert them and use them for their own ends. So you're going to get that here. You're going to get that anger and sort of we think the truth about these things. At the same time, there are the institutions that Gary was talking about, the institutions that we see, I'm going to suggest, normalize what is a less than normal group of people. You have the Pete Hegseths of the world. I mean, this guy is an utter incompetent. He's simply handsome. I mean, that really is it, okay? And he is, I think, he's well-spoken, okay? But this is a guy who was kicked out of a military detail by the Biden people, not because of his political views, but because of his white nationalist tattoos that he had. He's a Christo-fascist, all right? So he was kicked out. This guy not only not being kicked out of military leadership, he's being called upon to lead the entire military and the Department of Defense to manage this budget and these employees that number just short of 3 million. So there is an absurdity to this, that these institutions exist, and we saw them in Washington, but they're being greeted in this new administration by utter incompetence and by an expressed desire for revenge, and that you get in a Kash Patel. And again, Kash Patel couldn't find the men's room at the FBI. The agents aren't going to respect him, and yet he is going to, and this is what we were talking about with John Rothmann, ply his trade in going after the enemies of Donald Trump. So again, but in our universe, there is an anger, a resentment, and an understanding that these things, and there are many more, I just picked a couple, coexist with these institutions that we saw on display today. I'm talking about the band and the, Let Freedom Ring, and this American pride, which we do have because of America's history. But the history, the best parts of America, are not reflected in our judgment in this new administration. It's incompetence.
Yeah.
It's recrimination, it's revenge, it's political grifting. I mean, you're going to see corruption on a level unprecedented, and all of them are at the trough. That's why all those billionaires are there. The kleptocracy is in charge, and the oligarchs are all at the trough, and you saw them all there at that inauguration.
Yeah, I think we know the MAGA people, the Trump administration, they're not really lovers of America. They're lovers of money and lovers of themselves. the people who put America first, who are now, the people that Trump says, don't hire the Cheneys, don't hire the Romneys, all these people are my enemies, we're not going to hire any of these people for any jobs. Those are the people that put America first that are now on the outs. And so I think we can all see that. That's true.
Yeah, I have to say, this is a weird thing, and only because maybe I'm exposed to many more, a diversity of opinion and many people who are MAGA, et cetera. When you say they don't really love America,
No.
I wouldn't say that.
If they loved America, they would love the Constitution of this country. And they
Sure.
clearly do not. They clearly do not, because at every turn, anyone who supports Donald Trump does not support the Constitution, because he basically wadded it up in a giant ball and chucked it into a trash can whenever he could.
Well, what he literally did is wad up a bunch of things and chuck them into the toilet at the White House. We know he destroyed documents. He jacked documents from the White House. So I agree with you. I'm not talking about Donald Trump right now, because when he was swearing an oath to the Constitution, I thought, this is hilarious. I mean, this is just this is ridiculous.
Absurdity.
This guy, can barely spell Constitution, and he's, he doesn't have any loyalty. So I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about many who feel that they do have a loyalty to America, and just hear me out. Their sense of America and their sense of precepts that are associated with America may completely bypass and overlook these things that we're talking about. It's a little like religion. I hate to say it, but the politics and personal politics around America and the values of America are a little like when you talk about cafeteria Catholics. Cafeteria Catholics are the ones who, yeah, we don't do this anymore, we don't attend that, and we don't really believe this, and we don't really believe that, but we are organized by some of the basic tenets of Catholicism the way we see them, okay? The same is true, I think, in politics in America now. It's, we know Trump is a little off message a lot of the time, and we're not about, some of these things, but we think that the country has become too liberal, and we believe in his America First agenda. Now, the America, just to put a point on it, I think there is that out there. The America First thing is ridiculous to me. They keep hitting it, America First, and he hit it hard today. It really got over and over and over, America First, America First. Is there a president who didn't feel America First? Is there a president who has ever thought, yeah, America, definitely my top 3 priorities, but I'm going to try to do what's best. Sometimes it's not going to be best for our country, but it's just going to be best. No, every president is America First, okay? But this guy just pounded you with America First, so you go, yeah, that's my guy, America First, right, yeah. How come we're not about America First? We're getting screwed on all these different deals because nobody else has put America First like Donald Trump said. Guys, every president put America First, okay? But Trump is a messenger, and he's also got that propaganda machine, and we saw it work, and we're still seeing it. He was using it in the inaugural speech today.
Yeah. So I don't know
what's
if you
happening
saw
here.
Some of the things that, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Some of the things that I had wanted to talk to you about is, did you see the mean-spirited eviction post that Trumpers put out? They, the Trump team, captioned this parody, allegedly, eviction note: at noon Eastern, the White House senior living will cease to exist and its resident will be transferred to a Delaware facility on a permanent basis. That's so unnecessary at a day when, Gary's talking about normal and peaceful and whatever.
Well,
they're still being mean. Like, they won. Why still be mean? Like,
okay, wait a minute. Again, look, I don't mean to speak in defense of bullies at all, or rhetorical bullying, but who posted that?
The Trump team. The
Trump team officially posted that?
That's what I hear.
Okay, well, that's different then. You're right. That's reprehensible in the that's what you hear, or that's what we know? You think it was the Trump team that posted that?
Depending on whether you think this is a reliable source, according to the Huffington Post,
okay,
the Trump team's campaign at Trump War Room on X, formerly Twitter, shared a spoof video that showed the Biden White House as a care home for seniors, and where the narrator says its residents feel like presidents. And so then they post this eviction message, and I just feel like, If you're looking for normal and you're looking for peaceful and you're looking for pomp and circumstance and everything that makes America America, regardless of the seedy underbelly of what's really going on here, that's just not in keeping with the day's transfer of power.
If that came from an official Trump source, that is to say, associated with the incoming administration, then I agree with you. If it didn't, then it's really funny. I'm sorry, but it is. It's funny. You got to be able to have a sense of humor about the fact that, Biden was old, and I get it. They're playing up the old age thing. Please don't misunderstand me. I mean, you know how I feel about old people. Like, I love them. I think there's so much. I think our culture is backward. I think the Asian culture, which actually affords great respect to those who are older, I think that's the way America should be. Instead, we flush our old people and it's all about youth. It's crap here, man. I'm not about that. But there it is. Tony found it. Now, if this is really from Trump people, then I'm troubled by it. Yeah, you're right. But again, if it's just a bunch of MAGA people who put this up, then it is maybe potentially, I didn't see it, but it may be kind of funny. But Kim, I don't see how you could have passed over this key comment. Citizen Morgan says, Mark Thompson is an American treasure. Now,
oh, wow.
Yeah, right. Oh, wow is right, Kim. And first of all, you need a little more of that attitude in our interaction.
True. I really do.
We need a little more of Citizen Morgan. Mark Thompson is an American treasure. We need a little bit more of that on this platform, if I can say that. I mean, I'm breaking my ass to get here, and thank you for noticing, Citizen Morgan. I mean, I really, yeah. Rhonda Adams, on the other hand, says, I gotta go. I can't take this today.
Yeah, I mean, you have to preserve your sanity, right? Your serenity now.
Yeah, look, and one thing we will be here on this show, and if something changes, I will let you know. Like, if they crack down on us in some way, I'll try to indicate it to you with a wink or a nod or in some other post. But we'll be the loyal opposition. I will tell you this, and I think this is very important. Democrats, I mentioned you have to reconstitute, but it's not just about you reconstituting your party so that you can win. It's about reconstituting your attitude so that you can block some of the Trump agenda. You are the minority party. I get it. Trump won both houses of Congress. He has the Supreme Court, and he has the executive branch. But I'll remind you that Tommy Tuberville dude, okay, who is just a waste of space, what did he do as the minority party? What did that one guy do? Do you remember what he did with Joe Biden appointments? He held up, he blocked, exactly. He blocked a lot of those appointments. He blocked a lot of those promotions. One senator did it from the minority party. And he, as I've told you, is a despicable guy, okay? Petty as they come, barely acquainted with what he has. He was a bad football coach and he's a bad senator. So what did he do, though? He showed the Democrats that a minority party can block agenda, and the Democrats have to do the same. You can become such an institutionalist that you feel like, well, I know we could block it, but it's not the right thing to do, and therefore, a president deserves his appointments, and a president deserves all of these people that are going to be promoted. He deserves to have them ascend to their promotions. No. If you are really the opposition party, then oppose. Now, I hate that Newt Gingrich really started this. Newt Gingrich started the dig your heels in and give them nothing political strategy, but it's there. And so I'm saying to you, Democrats, if you want to be the loyal opposition, be the loyal opposition and start opposing agenda items. And so to our show, what you're going to get here is me calling stuff out. It's what we do. And we're going to follow this. And the idea is I'm like, I just can't take it anymore. I don't know. We lost the election. Well, that's a prescription for getting run over. So at least if we do get run over, we're going to show you the truck coming. Okay, you're going to see it here. And that is my pledge to everybody here. I am going nowhere, and I will make sure that we call it out as it happens.
So I guess you don't want as a gift a new crypto meme coin. Is that, would I be correct in saying that maybe you don't want the Melania meme coin or the assassination attempt themed meme coin of Trump? No?
I put
Now
all
that
my
we're-
money into buying the sneakers, and now there's a
Oh.
meme coin I need to buy.
Yeah,
Wow.
apparently we're now the crypto nation. The
Well,
crypto- yeah.
once Melania got the coin, I knew she was going to go to the inauguration because she wants to promote that coin. I mean, she's got to get out there, right? So,
Did you see her? We kind of started the show with the picture. She looks like the Hamburglar today. She's got this black jacket on and this big white hat coming down over her eyes.
well,
she looks like the Hamburglar.
I will
totally
say
does.
she looked extreme. I like somebody talking about the fact that it looks like Spy versus Spy. That'll be a reference that some people know from Mad Magazine. But I have to say, and again, I always I try to be straight with you guys. I think she's a beautiful woman, and she is dressed in a very elegant way. I think she's a despicable person. I think she is an utterly despicable person. But I can't beat up on her look. I mean, that's kind of what she is. She's a model who gets styled by, the greatest stylist probably in the world, and she looked styled. She looked good. But the meme coin and the exploitation and the grift, oh my God, you're seeing grift on a level we've never seen it before. I mean, Donald and Melania Trump launch a pair of meme coins ahead of the inauguration, raising serious ethics concerns.
You think?
That's the headline on CNN. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I heard also Trump is saying that he's vowing to release the records of the JFK assassination and the Martin Luther King assassination. He's going to release those records finally. That's what he
Well,
said.
let me tell you something about that. He is all show and no go. He has already been president for 4 years with all of those same pledges. I'm going to release all the information about UFOs and Area 51. I'm going to release all the information about the JFK assassination and Martin Luther King, etc. Dude, you already had 4 years to do it. You didn't. And you know what? You're not going to do it this time. Only things that have been released in any administration are so full of redactions that they do you almost no good at all. So I'd love to see it, but you're not going to. He's just so full of it. Just ignore it. It's just talking points. Just like he's not going to get Greenland. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So in a Joe Rogan interview, in an audience environment, in which he knows they want to hear stuff like this, he says, Donald Trump, then Tony's showing it to you now. Donald Trump hints at plans for JFK files, UFO secrets in Joe Rogan interview. It's absurd. So ignore it. Yeah.
Something though that I think is disheartening today, not that we need any more disheartening news, but I saw this survey conducted by CBS News and YouGov. And it found that 60% of respondents say they feel optimistic about a Trump second term, 40% pessimistic. The percentage kind of, I don't know, surprised me a little bit. The percentage of Americans who feel optimistic about Trump's presidency is near what other presidents scored in the past. And this one seems like it should be a lot more lopsided.
It should be a lot more lopsided. That last thing you said throws me. What do you mean by that?
I just feel like, I don't know. This is not, if indeed that this number 60-40 in favor of we're optimistic about the years ahead, if that's the case, and that's how other presidents have scored in the past when this poll has been given, it feels like this is different. This president is different. We know what we're getting this time around. I don't understand why people would feel optimistic about this. This is not a moment for optimism. I don't think it's a moment for panic, because that does us no good. But it doesn't seem like 60% of the country would be like, yeah, woo, forge ahead.
Well, I have two things to say. One of which is, first of all, you might be curious, the margin of error is 2.5 points on this. So 60% optimistic, 40% pessimistic. But optimistic doesn't mean woo-hoo, forge ahead. I mean, that was your layover on it. It might be close, and there's a portion of the public that's saying, yeah, I'm optimistic. I mean, we could make a change. I mean, I will say, lay that over the disenchantment that was associated with the Biden administration. Now, I feel people were too tough on him. way too tough on him. How does this guy leave office with an approval rating in the high 30s? I mean, it's just or low 40s. It's really, I think it's inexplicable on some level. Now, I say inexplicable. I can't explain it. I think a lot had to do with the aspect of who Joe Biden was. In this media age, it's all about how you come across. And he does come across as a very weak man because he speaks in a weak way. It's not fair, but that's just the way things are. So had he been able to sell a lot of his ideas, to take victory laps on a lot of the things that he did successfully, to really crow about the things he legitimately did for average Americans, I think it would have been a much different race and a much different presidency in terms of approval ratings. But since he could do none of those things, he's viewed as this weak guy who we're getting rid of. And now here's this strong guy who talks about America first. And remember, Kim, you and I and most of the audience here, we follow things day to day. We're really following this political concert almost note by note. That's not the way most people follow what's going on in the country. And I think that poll reflects more of that than any kind of really rah, can't wait to see what's going to happen that sort of you have ascribed to it. That would be my answer.
Poll also said 38% of respondents say the economy is currently in good condition. 56% say it's bad. 52% said they predict the 2025 economy will be good. 31 bad. So that's interesting.
Well, if I can just, again, I don't mean, and again, it's plus or minus 2.5% margin of error. So again, 38% say the economy is good and 56% say it's bad. It might be that 56% of the people feel as though they pay too much for things. And there is a legitimate question as to, I don't know what too much is. I mean, this economy has come to this point, it's evolved to this point, which is troubling. Housing is extremely important, and I would suggest maybe the thing that is of greatest, it's the greatest priority for people, and yet it is extraordinarily, cripplingly expensive to house yourself in this country. And then basic staples are expensive. So I kind of understand that. And so if it's against that backdrop that you're being polled, you go, yeah, I think things are going to get better. Kind of like, don't think things could get a whole lot worse. Now, people are about to get a real cold slap in the face because things are about to get worse, a whole lot worse. What was that other part of the poll, Tony? Did you put it up there? I'm sorry. I was just... Expect Trump's policies to make grocery prices go down. 39% said that. 74% among Trump voters, I see. So Trump voters think that by 3/4 of them think that Trump policies will make grocery prices go down. There's nothing in anything that Trump has suggested that would suggest that grocery prices are going to be affected positively by anything he's going to do. And again, on the, on the general, so total is 39% says go down. Anyway, all the percentages are a little bit skewed, I'd say. But the fundamentals of the economy are probably pretty good. The problem is this moment in time is being informed by a lot of things that are driving prices higher. And so that's the thing that affects many Americans. And so when these polls are done, again, it's not done, these are people who, aren't really super familiar with Vivek Ramaswamy and Kash Patel and the government essentially being run by oligarchs, the power of Elon Musk. There's just a superficial interaction with government, I'd suggest, generally speaking. And you're allowed to interact with government that way, in a superficial way. It's not like you have to follow every bit of it. Feelings toward U.S. politics right now, 69% say they're concerned, 47% say they're exhausted, 42% are demoralized, 20% are interested, 10% are motivated, and 7% are excited. So only 7% are in that rah-rah category, Kim, that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And everybody else sort of falls into one of those others: concerned, exhausted, demoralized, interested, or motivated. But concerned is it comes in at almost 70% and exhausted almost at 50%.
Yeah.
No.
I guess there's that. I don't know.
Democrats, if Biden stepped aside sooner, could Harris have won? This is the poll again from CBS News, YouGov. And this is a plus or minus margin of error of 4.2%. 54% say yes, Harris could have won if Biden stepped aside sooner. 46 say no, it made no difference. So it's about 50-50, I think. It's a 10% gulf. But,
Yeah.
you know.
What do you
So,
think? Do you think it was just about the amount of time she had to spread her message? That
I
she was really a little more time would have convinced more MAGA people to switch over? I don't think
No,
so.
I think the MAGA people were dug in, and I think those non-MAGA people were somewhat dug in. The biggest difference it would have made is what? If you had had more time to sell yourself. There's one thing it
Right.
would have done. It would have gotten people out more in bigger numbers. So that was the problem. The vote didn't show up. Okay. But what I also would say, and I've said it before, and I'm sorry with all respect, and I think Kamala Harris is a beautiful woman, and her work is impressive. She's got a resume that's quite extraordinary. I don't think she's a great political figure. I don't think she's in this modern media environment. I don't think she has the kind of cut through charisma that you need against a Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump is full of absolute BS. He makes up facts. He says them over and over. It's deplorable. But in this media environment where you're just allowed to say whatever you want over and over and over again, and the media hasn't really figured out a way, and we haven't figured out a way to digest these things and call them out appropriately, Trump really, plays unfairly. He plays dirty ball all the way to winning the ball game. And so you needed somebody who's going to call him out. And so an example, and I'm not saying that he would be the guy, although I felt he would have beaten Donald Trump in 2016, Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders calls it out. He speaks the language of people. He speaks to specifics. He doesn't ignore things when they're absurd. He calls them out as absurd. You need a Bernie Sanders type approach from the next American politician who's going to rise up on the left. Maybe it's a Josh Shapiro. Maybe it's somebody else who we have almost a Fetterman-like profile, which has a working man's delivery, but with the kind of, I'd suggest, the kind of rhetoric and the kind of fearlessness that Bernie Sanders has. Bernie Sanders isn't scared to go on Fox News. Bernie Sanders isn't scared to go on Joe Rogan. Bernie Sanders has no anxiety about going anywhere that there's a microphone, and no matter how hostile the interviewer is, Bernie can handle it. Well, you need that attitude to succeed in this media environment. So the answer to your question is, I thought Kamala Harris was a flawed candidate, and you wouldn't have ended up with her had there been an actual primary.
Did you see the report today that there's a record-breaking $250 million brought in during inaugural fundraising? And I don't know, apparently it was $107 million during Trump's first inauguration. The money was brought in. So this is $250 million, according to ABC News. It includes the official Trump-Vance inaugural committee, as well as Trump's other big fundraising vehicles that have been putting together his inaugural festivities. And I ask, $250 million? What do they spend that on? Where does that money go? What happens?
Well, I mean, it's a great way to funnel a lot of money to the Trumps personally. First of all, the inaugural committee is a great way to do it. It happened the first time when Trump was inaugurated in 2016. There was
$107 million. That's
right. Yeah. So this ain't their first dance. And now you have the oligarchs who all realize that this is the way to ingratiate themselves to Donald Trump. And so they are all peeling off at minimum $1 million apiece. Bezos wrote a check for $1 million. The Google bros wrote a check for $1 million. Zuckerberg wrote, and so on. We all know the cast of characters, although sometimes I lose track of exactly which ones I should list. But they all peeled off checks for $1 million, and that was just the beginning. There's a whole, and I know this guy. I had a conversation last night with somebody who's in this world in Silicon Valley, who was telling me I was urged, if I wanted to pursue any kind of political agenda with the incoming administration, to donate to the inauguration. And I thought, wow, it's an extraordinary thing we've come to. It's pay to play,
Yeah.
It's government for sale. And let me be clear, American government has always been for sale on some level. I mean, the minute it was fairly recent, I suppose, the Citizens United Supreme Court decision that allows money in politics, money is speech. The minute that happens, well, then the richest entities in America have the loudest voices, the most speech, because they have the most money. But that opened the floodgates, of course, to a system that was already awash in money. Already special interests were taking hold. But this new Citizens United decision at the time people just thought, oh my God, this is the beginning of corporate control. And you did see that. And so I'd say things have been supercharged, though, now, because now out of the shadows come the demands. If you want something done, give me the money. Trump said that to his oil company. Remember the oil company?
$1 billion, and you could do whatever you want. Sure.
Exactly. So, I mean, they've come out of the shadows with it, and now it's just right out front. It's an extraordinary thing. You're going to see grift and corruption on a level we've never seen before, and that says a lot, because there's a lot of grift and corruption in this government prior to this as well.
I was kind of confused about something that happened during the inauguration today, and it is that Trump did not place his hand on the Bible. He had his left arm down by his side and his right hand up to perform the oath. He had his family Bible there. The Lincoln Bible was there, but he didn't put his hand to swear the oath on the Bible. What does this say?
Yeah, fingers crossed. Right. That's wild. That's very funny.
Does this mean I'm not swearing on the Bible? I mean, I'll say the words, but I don't really mean it.
Oh, there it is. Tony's got Melania's holding the Bibles, and for those who
got the Bible, yes,
who are just learning, just listening, let me just tell you, Melania in that spy versus spy black outfit. I mean, it's very classy. Don't get me wrong. She's a gorgeous woman, even though I'm not on the inside, but on the outside.
I think it's cartoonish.
And exactly. Okay. And then Barron is kind of between them, just to their flank, and Donald Trump, right hand raised, taking the oath, but the left hand is not on the Bible. It is true. Now, the Bible is, to Donald Trump, just another thing that he can sell, use to wave around. It's not what it may be to some of you watching or to people of faith. I'd suggest to you, it doesn't matter whether he's on the Bible, whether his hand is, it doesn't matter whether anybody's hand is on the Bible, anybody mentions God or not. It's all performative. It is all theater. There is no solemnity, significance of any kind to whether or not it's a Bible. I mean, these people who have sworn on Bibles were part of slavery. They were part of every manner of horror that this country has been part of. So I'd suggest it's about acts and not about oaths. And so it's an interesting side note, though, that I had not noticed. So I love that you pointed it out.
What does that mean exactly? Yeah, does that mean I'm taking the oath, but I don't believe it? Does it mean, maybe we don't swear on the Bible because, I don't know, God is it a religious thing did he do it on purpose? I'm confused.
Brenda says, is his hand will be in our pockets.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
You got to have one hand for the oath and one hand to, collect the millions of dollars from the guys in the front row.
It's just wild. But no, he doesn't have any significance associated with the Bible. So whether or not it wasn't a premeditated move to avoid, oh my God, I don't want to endure God's wrath when I actually am lying about my oath. So, but I love that we caught that. That is just wild. So Kim, here's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
There's Joe Biden. Tony found from his inauguration the hand on the Bible.
Yeah.
And there's Obama. Yeah, it's pretty much standard.
It's the whole point of having the Bible at the inauguration is because you're going to swear on a Bible.
Exactly. It's not. It's kind of So
that's not the whole point of the swearing of the oath. Okay.
Here's David Bowman. I don't know if this is true or not, because I'm not. David Bowman says the Bible does not. The Bible does say that one shouldn't take any kind of oath. So Christians should be the first ones not wanting to put one's hand on the Bible to take it. Yeah. Look at that.
It could be some kind of religious thing, but I don't think Trump's that deep of a thinker, Mr. Bowman. I think he's just,
Mo says he swore to uphold the Constitution and then pardons the January 6th convicts. Right. Yeah, it's right. Exactly. Judge someone on their action, not on their oath.
I was hoping that we could talk about that before news, and I know we have Jefferson Graham coming in as well, but I know these January 6th pardons are coming in really swiftly. I also know that we've got, all of a sudden, day one, as promised, 100 executive orders, a lot of them about energy and declaring an energy disaster so that we can drill, baby, drill. We've got deportations on the brink here, and people are scared about what's going to happen with that. The January 6th pardons, I mean, there's nothing we can do. I have to look away because I'm so disgusted by it. But all of these other things that are coming to fruition, I guess, I don't know how we work around that, or whether an executive order and as an executive order and there's nothing that can be done.
I think when it comes to executive orders, there's really nothing that can be done. I mean, he as you've said, is on track to not quite hit 200, but well over 100 executive orders on this day. He's only just become president. On the oil, as you're aware, oil exploration and exploitation is something that I think is bizarrely flawed, meaning I don't understand this kind of a worship of drill, baby, drill, since the oil, as I've noted to you before, doesn't stay in this country. It goes out onto the world market. So if you're trying to bring your price of gas down, it doesn't help that they're drilling in the Gulf and drilling in the Arctic. It doesn't help right away. I mean, again, if I were running the universe, I would say, if you want our oil in this country, if you want my leases, and if you want to exploit this natural resource, you will keep that oil that you pump out. You'll keep it in this country. Mm-hmm. That's for our people. That's a resource that belongs to the people. That's not the way it works. Exxon is allowed to pump, and exploit natural gas. You know, a lot of it is shale oil. You see that oil go right onto the world market. It doesn't stay here. So we pay what the world market is tolerating in terms of prices, so, and price indexing. So, you know, I think I understand that's just one of the executive orders, but there's more to that, because even the oil companies are seeing kind of a diminishing return on some of this exploitation, and they're looking at alternative energy investment. So this is a very intriguing and complicated world. I'd love to talk about it more with Belinda, and we will get into it on this show in the days to come, I promise.
You want to do a little news?
Will you give us some news? I have to dance, but I can stay through your news. And then you'll talk to Jeff. So Jeff, I hope, will tell us about various tech associated with the fires in Southern California. There's another big wind event, and I'm really concerned about it. And I'm involved, as you know, in our own anxieties around it. And I'd love for Jefferson Graham to shed some light on some of the ways in which technology is both anticipating some of this stuff, warnings and advisories, and also how it's helping us build back and rebuild and recover after all the destruction in Southern California. So we'll get to that with Jefferson Graham. Can I just say, smash the like button like a boss, if you would. Smash it with your iron rod. I would also acknowledge many who have
with your iron rod.
I don't know if you've acknowledged. Has anybody been acknowledged here? Do you guys acknowledge when I'm not around? Do you acknowledge the people who contribute?
I kept meaning to do it, and then I haven't.
I kept meaning to do it. This is what I always. I get this all the time. I would have, but I'll tell you, like, I meant to. Elwin, who has one of the cooler names of any of our viewers and listeners, the beginning of chaos, he says. Thank you for the super chat, Elwin. Lucy McAllister is my favorite McAllister. Now I see why you didn't mention it, because you don't want to mention another McAllister. You're afraid of her stealing your spotlight. I mean, okay, look, can we not all get along? Can we not all McAllisters get along? Lucy, I adore you. $20 super sticker, and I appreciate it. Louis says, watch Mike Judge's movie Idiocracy for context. A sci-fi comedy in 2006 plays like a documentary today. Goodbye DEI hires. Hello DUI hires.
That's silly.
That's a great Pete Hexes reference at minimum. I love that. Luis is funny. Thank you for the $5 super chat, sir. Electing this dude president after J6, Louis says, is like humans throwing a baby shower for the what is it? The xenomorph?
Xenomorph in the Alien movie.
In an Alien movie. That's exactly that is. Dude. Luis, we have to have him on as a guest. He is very, very funny and very good. The great take. Thank you for the $5 super chat. BO says, hey, who is this? Was tuning into the Michael Shore show, but don't see him. Saw I'm Back YouTube show headline and wondered if it referred to Trump or Mark. Buckle up for life post-democracy, says B.O. Thank you for this the $10 super chat. Yeah, I'll be back on from the studio, I hope, on Thursday if the House makes it. Sally and Callie with a 2025 contribution super chat. She says, I'm scared for the next 4 years of an S show. Yeah, I'm scared also. I'm anxious. And thank you, Sally and Callie. And I'll tell you something. As I mentioned before, we'll be here for every beat of it. I intend to keep this channel on, and we will follow the guests, the journalists, the politicians, the brilliance of others will come here, and we'll share it with you, and we will follow it. So it may be an S show. I think it will be, but we will be able to follow every bit of the S here. RJ Dunn with a $10 super chat says, to ensure the MTS's longevity in the face of the next 4 years. I can't believe we have to do this again. Thank you, RJ Dunn, for supporting the show. And as you say, in the face of the next 4 years, it's going to be a tough climb, but we'll start climbing. Harry Magnan says for the $5 super chat, I like this Mark Thompson guest on the Michael Shore show. Michael comes back tomorrow, so you'll enjoy, and Debbie K. Johnston tomorrow as well. Debbie with a $10 super chat says, my husband's new bumper sticker. I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. That's exactly right. Boy, your husband's got it. That's exactly right, Debbie. Don't give me this BS. That's what the inauguration was so bankrupt to me. It's full of all the pomp and circumstance and solemnity and theater of these institutions. But when the institutions don't actually reflect purpose, when they are there to conceal an agenda, which is what we saw today, then in a way they only help sane wash the kind of rising fascism that I think we're going to see. So, and injustice, I might add. So today I'm going to walk the dogs like never before. I'm going to stay true to that term, like never before.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Jim Slayton, OG from the earliest days of the show. Thank you for that. So,
should we do a little news?
All right. Yes. So smash the like button. Thank you for being here. Kim's News, Jefferson Graham, and more. And Tony, if you would please, a news theme.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I love that. And I love the news theme. Tony's really getting it. I'm impressed. Yeah.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Donald Trump is now the 47th president of the United States. He was sworn in, sans Bible, just after noon Eastern inside the Capitol Rotunda due to freezing temperatures. Trump, just the second president in U.S. history to serve non-consecutive terms. President Trump says a tide of change is sweeping the country. He gave his inaugural address following his swearing-in ceremony this afternoon. Trump said his message to Americans is that it is time for us to once again act with courage, vigor, and the vitality of history's greatest civilization.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, his speechwriter is really good. And he did rehearse it. You know, he felt a little smoother with the prompter stuff than. But I promise you, he didn't edit it at all.
No.
You know.
TikTok back online in the United States after going dark for about 16 hours over the weekend, freaking people out. When users reopened the app, a message popped up thanking them for their patience and praising Donald Trump for getting the app back online. In a statement, the company said Trump assured its leadership they would face no penalties for continuing to provide Americans access to this app.
Yeah, but I will remind you, as I've told you before, you should ask Jefferson Graham about this. I wish I was going to be here, but I've got to get away. But ask Jefferson Graham about the fact that they have changed the algorithm completely in TikTok. So when you go on TikTok now, it is not the TikTok that you found before the shutdown. It is completely different. The people you followed before, they're not there in your feed. If you're a lefty, the left positions are not represented, okay? It is a complete right-wing blowtorch right now. Will it sort of reshape itself in the next few months? I don't know. But right now, they brought TikTok back, but it's only the logo and the name. The actual algorithm, which was the beauty of TikTok before, it is gone.
In one of his last official acts, President former President Biden, issued preemptive pardons for family members. In a statement, former president cited concerns that they will be targeted by baseless and politically motivated investigations. Biden pardoned his brothers, James Biden and Francis Biden, along with his sister, Valerie Biden Owens, among others. Los Angeles residents are preparing for another
He
potentially...
was pardoning Bidens who I never heard of them. I was like, that was a pretty sweeping pardon move. Yeah. Oh my God, I didn't even see that person at Thanksgiving. They got a pardon also? Wow, that's great.
Pardon everybody. Pardons for everyone.
Get them out there, man. Right.
Los Angeles area residents are preparing for another potentially dangerous wind event today. The National Weather Service has issued a particularly dangerous situation warning for large portions of Los Angeles and Ventura counties due to stronger than normal Santa Ana winds again expected, along with extremely low humidity levels. The alert is supposed to be in effect from noon today until late tomorrow morning. The potential winds come as firefighters continue working on containment of the Palisades and Eaton fires, which have burned more than 37,000 acres, killed 27 people, and destroyed more than 14,000 structures as well. We have a wind advisory in the Bay Area, not as dangerous as what's going on in Southern California, but in the Northern Bay interior mountains, 4 a.m. Monday through 2 a.m. Tuesday, the gusts are expected to reach as high as 50 miles per hour. Other impacted areas, Santa Cruz Mountains, East Bay Hills, and the mountains in Sonoma County as well. We had a recent lull in rainfall, but even with that in the northern part of the state, dry winds don't pose the risk for fire weather here in the Bay Area this time. National Weather Service saying, and unlike Los Angeles and San Diego, we've had significant rainfall earlier in the parts of the winter season, and that helps to limit those concerns here. There are two people, speaking of the wildfires, facing charges for allegedly impersonating firefighters and using an illegitimate fire truck in the Palisades fire evacuation zone. Authorities over the weekend spotted this truck that appeared to be a little fishy, so they went to check it out. Deputies made contact with the two suspects who claimed they were from the Roaring River Fire Department in Oregon. It turned out to be not a legitimate fire company. Daniel and Jennifer Nell were both arrested shortly thereafter. They were wearing turnout gear, allegedly had bought this old fire truck at auction and were cruising around the Palisades fire evac zone with it.
Well, you know what I think? I mean, we're all victims of fire. We were direct victims of fire. Mm-hmm. But I think that they should lock those people up for a long time. And I believe arsonists should, suffer the same fate. But the idea that you could somehow take on these are heroic firefighters. I don't care where they are. I don't care if they're prisoners, or if they're on the front line, or if they're coordinating the effort. These are all people who have displayed on some level or another an overall push toward the heroism required to save lives, and that they could impersonate them so that they could break into homes and rip off homeowners who've been forced to evacuate. It's despicable. It's so grotesque that it deserves very harsh treatment within the justice system.
Tweaks could be made regarding the future format of the 12-team college football playoff. The CFP executive director, Rich Clark, saying Sunday the group of FBS commissioners and the presidents and chancellors who control the playoff talked about a lot of important issues, but bigger decisions will be made very soon. So it's the 12-team format, apparently implementing them for the 2025 season. So we'll see how that goes if you follow college sports. There was a typed early draft of the lyrics to Bob Dylan's Mr. Tambourine Man sold at auction for just over $500,000 on Sunday. The lyrics were rescued from a trash can after Bob Dylan tossed them out in 1964 at the home of rock journalist Al Aronowitz in New Jersey. Other Dylan items were also up for sale, including a Fender Telecaster guitar that brought in more than $220,000, an abstract oil painting by Dylan that sold for $260,000. So that was a big moneymaker. And lastly, Coca-Cola is debuting a custom Diet Coke bottle for Donald Trump's presidential inauguration. The company posting a photo of Trump holding the commemorative bottle last week. The custom Coke bottles have been previously given to presidents for their inauguration. This, though, is the first Diet Coke commemorative bottle to be made. Coca-Cola says the tradition spans 20 years, and of course, we know Donald Trump is a big old Diet Coke drinker.
Yeah, isn't that nice? Wow.
Yeah.
How sweet.
Yeah, that's
Literally, it's really sweet. It's a little too sweet for me.
This report is sponsored by an actually amazing beverage, which is the CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It's all organic. I'm drinking my hibiscus tea today. So good. The tea is good. The coffee is excellent. The tea is excellent. It's all good. Check it out at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. See if there's anything there that interests you from all of the teas and the coffees. And then if you get to the end and you've got something in your cart, please use the code MARK T, no spaces in between there. Mark T at checkout gets you our exclusive 10% off at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
Yeah, make it a good year for our friends at Coachella Valley Coffee. Our audience has been great to support them, and they support the show. Coachella Valley Coffee does, and every little bit. But honestly, I wouldn't say it's the best coffee on earth if it weren't. You know, I'm blown away. And then they have sourcing associated with new beans. I told you about those Colombian beans that over the last couple of months, I don't know if they still have them or not. There was a limited supply, but you must try, if you look at the tasting notes, all of the different offerings at Coachella Valley Coffee. So it's CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, as Kim said, and Mark T at checkout gets you 10% off. Good stuff.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Right on, everybody. Well, we're from a remote location today. Barabbas says, at this rate, I actually expect Cortis Day to become real. Gamers will know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, is that a Grand Theft Auto thing? What is that, Tony? You're the closest we have to a real gamer on this show.
I have no idea. Let me look this up.
Cortis Day, Cordisdei. Cortis Die is some Call of Duty.
Oh, Call of Duty. Okay.
Yeah.
He's doing a Call of yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The main goal of Cortis Die in Call of Duty, just because we started it, seems to be to cripple capitalist governments everywhere in the world, particularly the United States of America. This is again in the, I guess, in Call of Duty.
Modern Warfare, yeah. That was,
Yeah.
I think that's all the
Wow.
Russian stuff, if I remember
So
right. Yeah.
at this rate, oh, that's interesting. That is not Melania, says Franco. Franco says it's a body double of Melania. Melania is shopping, says Franco. I love our audience. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Damn, been nearly 2 hours. Where's Michael Shore? Yeah, I agree, B.O. Where is our Michael? Yeah. Vilma says Trump didn't put his hand on the Bible because he knew it would burst into flames. I love it. Oh, thank you, guys. All right, listen, I'm so sorry that I have to leave because I want to hear what Jefferson has to say. What's that?
Yeah. Go.
Yeah. So thank you. Michael Shore here tomorrow, and so is David K. Johnson, as I'm sure Kim will mention to you. And I'll see you guys at the inauguration parties. No, I'm kidding. I'm nowhere near Washington. Okay. Thanks, Tony, and thanks, Kim. All right. Thanks, everybody.
You're going to watch this part of the show, though, at the end, Mark Thompson, because it is a lot about the emergency kit that people need in the face of fires and other disasters. Let's bring on our friend Jefferson Graham to the show. Yay, Jefferson Graham. Hi.
How you doing?
Oh, you sound so much better than last time.
Thank you. I tried something new last week and it clearly didn't
It
work,
kinda
but we went
backfired.
back to the old tried and true. Okay, so you get the evacuation order. You have to run out of the house. Maybe you didn't get the evacuation order, but you might one day. So I went out and bought one of these.
What is
Okay,
it?
this is the Jackery power generator. It's a backup battery. It sells for $250, and I got it on Amazon in like a day. This is like something that everybody should have and have charged up just in case, because think about it. You run out the door. You get the wedding album. Maybe you get the computer. Maybe you get a hard drive. I don't know. I'll take one of my rare guitars, whatever. And then you're in the car and you don't know where you're going and what you're going to do, and you have to charge up your phone. Well, what are you going to do? And your phone and your computer and your drone and all these various things. Well, you could do 6 different devices in here and get a week's worth of juice from this guy. So I'm really glad I bought it, and it's charged up, and you could also take it on the road with you. So there's that one. There's various models. I got the entry level, the one that's $250. I guess there it's $259. I paid a little less, but I guess it depends on the day. It can go up to $1,400. I mean, you can go crazy with this thing. But like my mother, who lives in Hollywood, she didn't get evacuated, but what she did, they turned the power off for days. Well, with something like this, at least you could plug in some lamps, right?
Absolutely. Or your phone or whatever else. But I heard you have another thing for phones.
I have a lot of things for phones.
Because I mean, it's a concern, you leave your house, maybe you've got your purse on your shoulder and your animal under an arm, but maybe you didn't plug in your phone and you don't have a lot of juice left. And what are you going to do?
Yeah. I
As
talked
your
to
loved ones are trying to call you and you're trying to call and,
Yeah, and you will run out of juice. But so I talked to a bunch of people who lost their homes, and they said their phone was their lifeline.
Yeah.
And we've talked about these before, but the power banks, these sell for $40 to $50. They'll give you an extra charge or 2 or 3. You should always have one charged. One of the things that people have been saying is that you should always have the gas tank on full, never have it on empty. If you have to run out, what are you going to do?
Sure.
Imagine in Pacific Palisades, the gas station also went up in flames, and everybody was trying to flee. So you want to have gas in the car, or a charged battery in the case of Mark's electric car, right? So anyway, these power banks, there's a lot of different ones. If you have an iPhone, get one that's MagSafe, because you don't have to worry about plugging in wires. You just snap it to the back of your phone, and there you go. And it works really well. So that's one thing. The other thing that nobody thinks about, it's on this desk. Where is it? Yeah, here it is. Once upon a time, we would buy a phone and it would come with a little power brick and a cable to charge it up. They stopped doing that because they got cheap. So you could say, well, that stinks. Or you could say, you know what? These new ones that they sell for the third parties are so much better. They're fast charging. This one is a 65 watt. The ones that Apple used to give you were 10 watt. And you can do 4 devices at once. And so this needs to be in everybody's suitcase. And it needs to be in there along with, do I have a cable? You need multiple cables. They should be in your suitcase with the charger. Okay.
So do you think that this is something that people should just keep in there? A lot of people, they're doing the go bags, right? The go bag by the door. You have this kind of tech stuff in there so that you don't get caught without your cell phone or a way to call for help, this type of thing.
Yeah. Well, one thing is that I always have separate cables in my suitcase because I don't want to take the cables that I have here. And it's just way more convenient. I would just highly recommend go on Amazon, so get me a twofer. This will be $10 to get 2 cables. And maybe you need 3, maybe you need 4. It depends on the size of your family, how many people are fleeing, how many people are going away. If you have a large family, get lots of cables, but have them live in the suitcase because they don't take up much room. And then the other thing, it's the old hand crank flashlight, radio, and device charger. So $20 I paid for this on Amazon. You can't see, but I have a little radio here, and then I have a slot on the back to charge my phone. $20. That could live in the case as well, because you might need a flashlight.
You might. So that's some good advice. And I know Mark was talking about TikTok earlier and asked me to mention this to you about what the difference is between the TikTok at the beginning of last week versus the TikTok that just came back online. Mark says it's full of these, conservative pushed agendas that we're getting now if you use TikTok. Have you seen that? And is that something that you can fight against on TikTok once you start clicking on things that interest you?
The funny thing is that I turned it on immediately when Mark said that,
Hmm.
and the first person I saw was AOC.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
she's not exactly a right-wing Republican.
No, no, that
And
works out, right?
and I didn't see any right-wing Republicans.
Yeah.
Now, perhaps Mark has been looking at more political stuff on his TikTok, which
Mhm.
is why it shifted. I will say I don't think TikTok will ever be the same. And I
How
also
so?
I just don't think it's going to be the same. I think by even going off for a few hours and playing this will it, won't it, where's it going game, I
Mhm.
think, its audience is a fickle audience and they'll move on to something else. And I just don't think it'll be the same. I think, they're saying that Elon Musk will buy it or he'll get half of it and he's going to turn it into a Twitter cesspool. And it's just not going to be the same. And people will move on to whatever the newest, hottest thing is. And somebody will come up with that. I don't think it's going to be Facebook and Instagram and Threads, but it will come up. And at some point in 2025, there'll be something else that kids are going to.
Okay, well, that's it. I mean, I don't think people are going to stop using TikTok, seeing as the outpouring of where's our TikTok going? Whether it's different or not, I think it's still going to have an audience.
Yeah, it'll have an audience. It will not be 170 million people. It will not be the same. I don't know if you go back to Vine. Vine was an early thing that was really hot, and then it
Right.
wasn't. And I don't know. I can't see it. And I think YouTube will only be bigger, and
Yep.
somebody else will come out and pick up the TikTok slack.
Do you see the possibility of there being some type of backlash against all the tech bros that are throwing money at the Trump inaugural committee? You've got the people from Google, you've got Zuckerberg at Meta, you've got Bezos, Musk, we knew already, but these tech people that are ingratiating themselves with conservatives, you see any kind of backlash there, or just like you continue to order your Amazon and you continue to do business on Facebook and there's not really much that will happen?
There will be vocal backlash and it will amount to not much. And
Yeah.
I've been through it before. I've been through the Facebook backlash. I've been through the Amazon backlash. And, I mean, do you remember when they had the Cambridge scandal and people were disconnecting their Facebook and more
Yeah.
people ended up subscribing to Facebook. More people downloaded Facebook after the scandal than before the scandal. They're bigger and stronger than ever before. Look at Zuckerberg. We thought with the metaverse, he was toast, he was done, but not so.
Back to the wildfires. I was
Yes.
thinking about your devices that you recommend. And I know that we've talked about this before about backing up photos and things, but we've got another wind advisory, a high dangerous wind event warning for Southern California again. And it just makes me think about these a lot of people say, well, the first thing I would grab other than living creatures and people in my home is the photos that I can't replace.
Yeah.
But nowadays, you've talked to us before about scanning your photos, about
Yeah.
services that'll do it for you, about, backing up all your photos in multiple places. Do you think most people have done that, or is that this job that you just push off down the
Oh.
road until boom, all of a sudden you really need it?
No, and where's the deed to my house? Do you have any idea? Because we're looking for it, and
Yeah.
that's the other thing you're supposed to scan. The good news about wedding albums is if you got married in the last 20 years, there's digital copies of all those and you can get another album made. If you go before the digital era, there it goes. It goes up in smoke. So you do run out with that album.
Mhm.
I'm going to be making some new I'm going to be redoing some albums for some clients who lost their homes.
Oh.
So scanmyphotos.com. They charge $150 to stuff 2,000 photos into a box and scan them for you and get you copies. It's worth it. They always have coupons. They're actually doing a deal right now where if friends and family have reprints of the prints that went up in smoke, they'll do them for free. But
Oh,
good
that's
luck
so
with
nice.
it's nice, but how many photos of me do you have? Right? exactly. You know, it sounds better than it is, but
Yeah.
it's a nice gesture. But people should take advantage of it. At the very least, take pictures on their phone. Use the Google Photo Scan app. You go to FedEx office, see if they've got a scanner there. Do anything they can, and use the backup tools that are readily available. Anybody who subscribes to Amazon Prime, the expedited shipping and entertainment service, gets unlimited photo backup on the Amazon Photos app. And anybody who's a member of Amazon Prime and not doing it, that's just dumb, because at least just put it there. You don't have to use it, but at least have backup copies of your photos.
Yeah.
Apple has iCloud, which is $10 a month. Google Photos is $10 a month for 2 terabytes.
You stalled out there on me. Unless I'm the one that's stalling out, I'm not sure.
Am I back again?
There you are. Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Apple iCloud and Google Photos, $10 monthly for 2 terabytes. At least if you're in an area that you're worried about, at least get the process started. You could always download your photos again and then disconnect it.
Jefferson Graham, thank you for the great information, and thank you for coming on a day early. I know you're traveling tomorrow, so I appreciate you being here today.
No, not a problem. See you next week.
Thank you. Bye, Jefferson Graham. Jefferson Graham on Photo Walks TV on YouTube. You can find his show, and we're always grateful to have him come on. So, Tony, that is it, my friend. We have made it through a Mark Thompson show despite all the technical issues.
Audio problems.
Here we've come out the other side of it. We've got a new president. We've got another 4 years ahead of us. But you know what? We're going to get through
4 years
together.
of content.
Look
at the bright side.
You know what? You find the silver linings everywhere, my friend. You really do. I hope you had a great
it right now.
weekend.
I really got it right now. It's been a bad week.
Oh yeah, I'm
bad
sorry.
weekend for me.
I know. Oh. Kurt says, yeah, investment in a removable hard drive is just $50. So we like it. Yeah, that's really good. Citizen Morgan says, I'm not sure, probably in some MAGA crazed state. Not sure what that's in reference to. Cece says, if you lose all your photos, hopefully you can access them uploaded to Facebook, Instagram over the last 10 years. That's kind of, I think, why a lot of people stay on Facebook, is because they have that cache of photos there.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Shadow. Bye, everybody. I'll see you on the After Party Live in just a few moments.
I'll drop a link. Give me a second.
Bye-bye.